This true story happened in Shijiazhuang, Hubei province. A girl in heels is carrying a school bag came in a hurry to get a car. She said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Zhu." She sat down for one stop and said thank you so that Mr. Zhu, who was supposed to be returning the car, moved his heart. When she reached the turning point, she suddenly needed to talk about Mr. Zhu. "I only have 3 yuan, so a half stop is fine." Mr. Zhu can see the girl's flushed face in the rear view mirror and said nothing. The taxi fare in this city starts at 5 yuan. He drove near the bus stop and Mr. Zhu stopped the car. The girl said happily when she closed the door, "Thank you, mister." Mr. Zhu watched her go forward with a feeling of sadness, and from that weekend onwards, Mr. Zhu saw girls waiting at the school gate every weekend. Once, twice, or 3 times, Mr. Zhu gradually developed the habit of pulling up before handing over the car on weekends. The one behind must be a glass-footed girl in the middle school. He put up a stop sign and stayed focused at the school gate. But in 5 minutes, the last sentence of the girl getting off the bus is always, "Thank you," which Mr. Zhu seems to be waiting for that line. No matter how far you run on the weekend, Mr. Zhu will drive here too. Sometimes, he has taken the girl for a ride even if he is fined by mistaken delivery of the car. Time passed quickly. It was the summer of the 2nd year. Watching the girl get on the bus with a heavy bag, Mr. Zhu suddenly felt lost. He knew that the girl had been admitted to a known high school. This will be the last time she will ride in his car, so he insisted on taking the girl home. Even though taking the girl home is sure to miss the delivery time, he feels there's nothing wrong with a fine because he wants to spend more time with the girl. The girl's house is half an hour away. The girl came down with her bag and Mr. Zhu took a box out of the car and gave it to the girl. The girl accepted the gift. Then he gave a porridge to Mr. Zhu and said, "Thank you, Mr. Zhu." Watching the girl walking into the building, Mr. Zhu took a long breath. 10 years later, he was wiping the car and heard a missing person announcement on traffic music who is looking for the Victory Taxi Company 10 years ago. The driver whose license plate is GAZ-X. He was surprised to hear that someone was looking for him. He dialed the telephone and heard the voice of a young girl. The girl asks pleasantly, "Is that you, Mr. Zhu?" Mr. Zhu's eyes suddenly blurred. The girl still remembers him for 10 years. When Mr. Zhu saw the girl again, he could hardly recognize her. She stood up and gave a porridge to Mr. Zhu. Then they talked about the past. 12 years ago, her father was also a taxi driver. No matter how busy he is, he will drive her home at the weekend. The family went home for the new year in order to carry more things. Her father borrowed a friend's van and it accidentally collided with a big truck. The van was hit beyond recognition and her father died on the spot. The girl's foot was seriously injured. She was strong and could accept everything, but she could not accept others' ridges. So she didn't tell anyone about the accident on the road. Going home from school, when asked by classmates why she takes the bus now, she said that her father had gone away, until she met Mr. Zhu. She saw the taxi parked on the side of the road and was motionless, like her father drove over and waited at the school gate. She only had $3 to take the bus, but she took it all out and took the taxi for only one stop and walked back on foot for an hour and a half to go home. Because no one ever guessed that she'd lost her father, "You must be clueless that your taxi is the one my father drove before he died." The taxi number has been printed in my mind. the girl said with tears in her eyes. Mr. Zhu's nose was sore that he almost shed tears. I always wear this medal with me. I don't know what to do without it. Will I go to this day and still have you refund my car fare? I've always saved this money. I think I can overcome any difficulties. Although I lost my father, I still have a fatherly love. With that, the girl took out a medal from her pocket and hung it on her body. It was a piece of gold with a blackened edge. There is a line of small characters on the back of the medal. May your life be like this piece of gold. This gold is 10 years ago. A gift from Mr. Zhu to the girl. The girl took Mr. Zhu's arm and walked to the side of the road. He saw where the girl parked his car, which made him cry in tears. Now he remembers the glass-footed girl and his daughter who died 10 years ago. It's like a daughter printed by a mold. Every weekend before her death, Mr. Zhu would go to 40 Middle School to pick her up. He always remembers the sentence, "Thank you, Dad," before his daughter get into and got out of the car. How much sweetness and happiness he had felt that the medal is the gold that his daughter got in the Olympic competition. She was all his pride and hope, but his daughter was not prepared to go. While the girl was in his car, he felt that his daughter had returned to him. On his way home, Mr. Zhu bought a newspaper. On the first page, he saw the eye-catching caption of the photo of the girl with glass feet. The headline is Lin Meixia Zi, young vice president of multinational corporations in the city. While reading the newspaper, Mr. Zhu used to have Taoyuan in his pocket. Suddenly, his hand felt an envelope which was filled with a lot of cash. Mr. Zhu was stunned. He couldn't think of when Lin put the money in his pocket. Maybe it was during at the moment when she took up his arm. There was a note in the middle of the dollar. Mr. Zhu, this is the interest of fatherly love. Please accept it forever. You will always be in my heart. Thank you for all your help.